Hi and welcome to my video. Today's video is an update for my Pan That palette of 2024. This year I decided to pan my ColourPop's Going Coconuts palette. I'm gonna pop up in a corner somewhere a picture of what it looked like in the introduction and the picture of what it looked like in the last update because it looks quite different. So here is what the palette is looking like today. There are two big differences here. First one is that I repressed this setting shade up here, and I also have a shadow in the middle here, which was empty in the previous update. I took a little bit of this shadow and a little bit of this shadow and mixed them together and pressed them together in that middle pan that was empty. I'm gonna swatch out this shade, and this shade so you can see the difference between them and what it looks like on actual skin. Here they are on my hand and also on my fingers. The top one is the inner corner shade called Palm Reader. The middle one is the shade that I mixed with these two. And the bottom one is the shimmery shade called the Cocoa. As you can see, I made this shade a lot lighter by mixing this into it because I just feel like this was too dark. I literally had no idea how to use it. It's just too dark of a shimmer for me to feel comfortable using it. So this one has really come in handy because the palette now has no mid-toned shimmer since I used up the actual shade that was in this middle pan. I redid this palette quite early after the last update, I would say a couple days later, because I didn't know how to use this shade. And also only using this shade as an inner corner is not gonna get me that far. You know, I'm not gonna use up this whole pan by only putting it in my inner corner. And also I pressed the shade called Shredded because the pan was just so huge in there that I couldn't really get the edges. Now the pan is also quite huge in there already, but I don't think I'm gonna repress it again because I pressed it quite a lot looser than it was originally in the palette. And now it goes a lot faster and it is a lot easier to use it. I didn't film the repressing, unfortunately, because I have only repressed a couple eyeshadows before this repressing session, and it's always been a huge mess as it was this time as well. Yeah, I'm just not good at repressing stuff, so I didn't want that embarrassment on camera. Anyway, last update, I set the goal to use all of these shades at least 7 times, and I managed to do that, yay! I know it's not that big of a goal, but for me it was actually quite difficult. By the end of the month, I literally had to check which shades I haven't used yet and mark them in my calendar as when I'm gonna use this shade, when I'm gonna use this shade, when I'm gonna use this shade, to make sure that I get the 7 uses on all of them, and I did! Let's go through the numbers. The first shade, called Shredded, I used, since the last update, I used it 23 times. Altogether in this project, 82 times, which is a lot. I use it every time that I do my eyeshadow. That means that in the last month, I did my eyeshadow 23 times. Quite a lot, actually, considering I had a horrible month. Next shade here is called Palm Reader. I used it 17 times. In total, 58 times. And interestingly enough, in the last update, I said 17 as well. So for 2 months in a row now, I have used it 17 times a month. The pan, I am not sure has gotten any bigger. It's been quite small this whole time. I hit pan on it before the last update. I'm not really trying to expand the pan. I'm trying to evenly use up the shade around the pan so that it's not just like a small crater in there. I want it actually to be like a smooth hole. I don't know how to explain it. So I don't think that the pan has gotten any bigger since the last update. The last shade in the first row, called Culara, I used 9 times, in total 25 times in this project. The shade down here, called Lovely Bunch, I used 10 times, in total in this project 42 times. The shade in the middle, let's call it Cocoa Crush because that's what it says here, but it is actually the mixture shade of these two. I used it 7 times, in total 7 uses. This shade here, called Shell Yeah, I used 7 times, in total 16 uses. The shade down here, called Get Cracking, I used 7 times, in total 18 uses. This was the last shade that I hit my 7th use on literally yesterday. I was quite stressed out about it. The shade down here, called the Cocoa, I used 7 times as well, in total 10 times, which was my goal, to get all of these shades into double digits. And the last shade called Nutty I used 7 times as well, which means in total 22 uses. I tallied differently, this shade 7 times and this shade 7 times. I didn't just make a mark for this shade whenever I used this, because sometimes I only use this one, sometimes I only use this one. So I'm very glad that I managed to hit my goal, and also that I managed to hit basically 2 new pans again. I'm gonna put a picture up on the screen as well, actually, of the palette, what it looked like after the repressing. So both of the pans were full, like no shiny pan in sight, and now they're quite big. These are very shallow. I don't know if you can see. I mean, the edges are still quite high because I'm bad at repressing, but this one is very shallow. So I think when I use this shade up, I'm gonna mix it again, but we'll see. I don't know. I don't even know what goal I could hit for the next update, because 7 uses again seems really boring, but also I don't know if I could hit a pan. I said it in the last update as well, that the next pan is gonna come in Lovely Bunch. Is it? Yes, Lovely Bunch. But I don't think it's gonna come for the next update either. You can see that there is a big dip going, but it's nothing compared to this one. I think I'm just gonna set a goal again to use the whole palette 7 times. I mean, not the whole palette, but every shade at least 7 times. So I guess that is it for today's video. I am really loving the look of this palette. It looks so nice and so used now. It actually looks like I can finish a couple shades in here. I am sure that I cannot finish this whole palette in 2024, but right now I'm thinking that I'm gonna keep going with it in 2025 and actually try to use up this whole palette within 2 years. But thank you so much for watching today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and maybe consider subscribing as well. Thank you so much, and bye bye.